Does anybody have any idea what the origin is of modern day Jewish self-defense? What is the origin? Where did it originate from? How did it happen? What happened? Any idea? What's the preconception? You know, who was the first person that said Jews have to learn how to shoot? Or the Jews have to defend themselves? You know, if we look back in time, when we go back to biblical times, Jews were fighters. We were fighters. We knew how to defend ourselves. We were not afraid to stand up for our rights. We fought for our country. We liberated our land, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 2,000 years of being thrown out of our homeland. And suddenly, well, not suddenly, 2,000 years of suddenly, we're still praying to Jerusalem, but we're afraid. You know, we're afraid. We lay low. I can't tell you how many times I have been told by potential leaders or leaders in Herut that I have asked to not be leaders at the end, that say to me, we have to lay low. We have to act with restraint. If we don't make a scene, then we lay low, then they'll leave us alone, because if we're quiet and we're nice, people will leave us alone. And we have the National Director of Herut Canada and our Director of Security Worldwide, Aaron Hadida, on this call, on this Zoom, excuse me, who will give a modern, really modern, how we do it today. But Aaron, how has that worked for us when we lay low and we don't do anything and we sit back with self-restraint? How's that worked for us?
It worked great, real great. They rounded us up in cattle cars and they executed every single one of them.
There you go.
So yeah, it worked out real good. And if you look back at the history, those who survived were the ones who went into the forests and lived there and ate bark and branches and fought back against them and became a resistance. They obviously couldn't save everybody, but they saved who they could, and they stayed alive because they resisted and because they fought back. I'm a huge proponent of fighting back. I'm definitely not a person that wants to sit back and close my windows and wait till they come through the window, or hope that they don't. I'm a guy who's proactive. I'll go after the source before it even starts thinking about coming to me. And I believe that's what the Jewish community needs today. We knew it back then in the 19th century, where it all started, where the idea of self-defense came into our minds, was the necessity for it, that nobody was going to come to our defense but us. So Jews understood that, and they started to become very alert and very aware of it. Somehow, between World War I and World War II, that idea sort of slipped. But I believe since then, into the modern era, into today, for the most part, people understand that you have to be ready, physically, mentally, spiritually. You have to be prepared for what's coming. And I'm not an alarmist, you know that, but it is coming. It's coming. No two ways about it.
Thank you, Aaron. So we're gonna go shoot back into history and then revert back to you, Aaron. Thank you, so that you can give us a heads up on what to do today. Miriam, if you go to the next slide, please. So it is accepted. I don't know why it came out so small. I apologize. Can anyone see the PowerPoint? Thank you. Oh. Okay, I don't know why it didn't save. And it also has Latin in it, or something, or Spanish, or that's Latin. Okay. Anyway, I must have sent you the wrong one. Sorry. I have full disclosure. I have been with a terrible tooth infection for the last 4 days. So I'm on a lot of painkillers. I apologize, but it won't mean the topic will be less informative, or that I don't know my stuff. I apologize. The PPT is on me. Anyway, long story short, it is accepted to understand, or people believe that the first Jews to discuss self-defense in the land of Israel were the ones that immigrated in the second Aliyah to Israel in the beginning of the 20th century, and they established an organization called Hashomer, the Guard. Okay, the Guard. These were Jews that were living in the new settlements that they had been, establishing in the Ottoman Empire, during the Ottoman Empire, and they were basically guarding. And this was in 1909. They basically began guarding their towns, the different agricultural settlements that they were establishing. And Hashomer is considered the most popular and most well-known group of guards. They would basically train Jewish immigrants normally from Eastern Europe that would come to the land of Israel and train them to guard. They are known to be the first group that basically talked about self-defense, and this is in the land of Israel. They had a lot of problems. The farms were being attacked by the locals, by the native Arabs, and they had to defend themselves, and they had to guard, be it the cattle or the growth, the agriculture. So they formed groups of guards. And unfortunately, what's completely ignored is the fact that Zev Jabotinsky, who lived in Odessa at the time, who is the spiritual leader of the Herut movement and the Beitar movement, the revisionist movement, he realized this many years before them. And Jabotinsky was born in Odessa in 1880, and he grew up in a very Jewish home, regardless of what people may say or think. His father passed away when he was only 6 years of age, so he grew up under a lot of love and education of his mother in a very, very Jewish home. And he basically referred to Jews and to Jewish nationalism, what we call today Zionism, and later on they called Zionism, as a matter of fact. It was that simple, that it was a matter of fact. It was as clear as the air we breathe. That's how he referred to it. The fact that we as a nation deserve certain things, to him, was very, very clear. And he experienced a lot of issues as a young man. And already we can see when he was 23 years of age, due to the rumors of the pogroms that were heard all over Eastern Europe, and especially in the Russian Empire, the Great Russian Empire, he decided in 1903 to establish the very, very first defense group in Odessa. Now, obviously, they weren't allowed to have arms because they were Jews, and many things were illegal. In fact, he was put in prison for quite a while for holding illegal literature. And when he came out of prison in 1903, Jabotinsky decided that the only solution was not to be at the mercy of the Gentiles, not to be at the mercy of the non-Jews, but to be self-sufficient. How do you become self-sufficient? You train even with sticks. And that is exactly what he said. And this was the beginning of his understanding. Now, Jabotinsky was under the notion that the Jew in exile had a psychological problem, a deep psychological problem, because due to living for over 2,000 years in exile, we had become afraid. We had, put a lot of effort into self-restraint, into, bowing down to, not physically, some physically, to hate, to allowing whoever it was in whichever country to rule us, to tax us, to take away from us, to make us move, to kick us out, to call us any libel under the sun, to create any blood libel around us under the sun. And in 1897, when Theodor Herzl started the first Zionist Congress, of course, there was an awakening in Eastern Europe. And during this awakening, Jabotinsky was already 17 years of age. But there was already an awakening. but the awakening wasn't enough to take us out of the psychology of the exiled Jew. And Jabotinsky understood the deep need in creating a new Jew which would be proud and know how to defend him or herself. And in this, what I'm trying to say is that this is no less than a miracle. It's an absolute miracle, because for so many years in all of the old movies that we see in the pictures, Jews are seen, especially in Eastern Europe. You see these hidden, bent over people that are afraid. It's seldom that you see a proud Jew. I think the first time that we really see a picture of a proud Jew, can anybody help me? At the end of the 19th century, when do we see a picture of a proud Jew? 1897, First World Zionist Congress. Theodor Herzl. Does anybody know what Theodor Herzl looked like? Can anybody give me a little bit of how Theodor Herzl looked? Theodor Herzl, first of all, wore a suit, or, you know, one of those, forgot what they were called, but it's somewhat like, looks like a tuxedo, and with a big top hat, very respectable, very different to the shtetl Jew, very different to the ghetto Jew, very distinct in that time. And Jabotinsky looked at Herzl and he said, this is what I want the Jew to look like. But in order for us to be proud and to hold ourselves high and to feel that we are worthy, not better, worthy, equal, we have to be able to defend ourselves. We have to be able to be tough enough, and I think Aaron is an unbelievable example of this. And forgive me, Aaron, for speaking about you. I don't think Aaron will ever pick a fight. But first of all, it's seldom that somebody will look at him and pick a fight with him, because he looks too tough to pick on. That is the aspiration. That is what Jabotinsky wanted. Aaron, forgive me. I hope you forgive me for using you as an example. But it's a very proud example I'm very proud of. And in Jabotinsky's eyes, what we wanted to see was a Jew that was so confident that nobody would attempt to hurt or harm them. And how do you do this? How do you do this? First and foremost, it's changing the psychology. Changing the psychology. I'm not a psychologist, but I can tell you it's a lot about self-esteem. It's a lot about self-esteem, and for that he coined the term Hadar, H-A-D-A-R, which basically means glory. I felt that term was so important that, God bless her, I even named my firstborn that. My daughter's name is Hadar. And the reason for that is because I feel that it encompasses what we as Jews need to be in order to be proud and respectful and respectable. It is that inner pride. It's not prideful, God forbid. It's that inner pride that gives us the self-esteem to hold our head up high. Anybody remember when our parents or grandparents said, sit up straight? Sit up straight? Absolutely, all the time. Why? Because it shows that we have self-respect. Self-respect. When do things go haywire? Obviously, when there's too little or too much. Obviously, it's a matter of balance. But Jews in diaspora, Jews in exile, because at the time it was very much exile, because there was no homeland for the Jewish people to come back to. Jews were afraid. Jews were afraid to feel that they have rights like every other nation. I say this in every lecture, and I will drum it into every group's head. Every crowd that I get to speak with, it's a matter of self-esteem and our understanding. We don't claim to be better than anyone else, but we definitely deserve to be treated equally and respectfully. And that starts from within. Now, Jabotinsky started this in 1903. Way before the Hashomer, which was in the land of Israel, way before Neely. Neely, does anybody know what Neely is? Neely was the underground movement that was established also in the land of Israel, in the Jewish settlement, to help drive the Ottoman Empire. It was a spy string that was put together to help the British mandate get information to help drive the Ottoman Empire out of the land of Israel. These were the first signs of Jewish bravery. First signs of Jewish bravery and the willingness to put ourselves and put our lives on the line in order to defend Jews. Nili, Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. Sarah Aronson, the Aronson family, if we're interested, we can do something about the underground movements in the land of Israel. But we definitely need to understand that the first one to come up with this was Jabotinsky. Why am I telling you this? Because Jabotinsky had what we call in Hebrew a Mishnah Sdura. It didn't just come and say, oh, we have to defend ourselves. Oh, we have to be aggressive. Oh, we have to get rid of them. Oh, we have to throw them all out, or all sorts of other things that are very popularly used, especially as of lately. Jabotinsky was nuanced. And I understand that that's a complicated term, and it's very easy to be marginal. It's super simple to say, I belong to the extreme this, or I belong to the extreme that. It's so much harder, and yet I believe so much more accurate to be nuanced, because nuance gives space, and we are not of one type. The Jewish people are not one type. We are not all the same. We are different. And if we are, if we have any inclination or any desire to win and to continue to live, we have to accept each other as we are and be inclusive and nuanced. And we are very, very, very different. And we can hold a complete conversation here today on the issue of the importance of, living in the land of Israel, or living in the state of Israel, and being Semitic in behavior, and somebody like myself who's so American in so many different ways living in Israel. And I say, look, I still have 2 or 3 boxes of, of toilet paper downstairs and 3 or 4, paper towels. 15 boxes of tissues. I'm still very American, not as Middle Eastern, perhaps, as I'd like to be, perhaps. Does that make me a lesser Jew? I don't think so. We have different cultures. We have different aspirations. We have different traditions. But the thing that's the most important in my humble opinion, is the issue of unity and the understanding that this unity will only be strengthened and can only be if we know how to defend ourselves and protect ourselves. And they go hand in hand with being proud Jews. Self-defense without being proud is just muscle. And I don't know a lot about self-defense, but I do know history. And that's why I have Aaron, thank God. But the most important thing is to understand where this came from. And the fact, and by the way, it infuriates me because people, again, and this has been going on and on, this one was right and that one was right, and do this and do that, and they're showing I was part of this gang in the past. Irrelevant to the point. Right now, first of all, it's nice to talk about what we did 20, 30, or 40 years ago, but now we have to look at what we want to do today. So 1903, the first attempt to organize Jews for self-defense was Jabotinsky. And we may think that after that, okay, it all fell into place, and then the entire settlement, the Jewish settlement in the land of Israel, went for self-defense. But Miriam, if you could go to the next one, please. Thank you. The Haganah, the next organized Jewish defense group was the Haganah. Haganah means defense, and everyone thinks that the defense, or the Haganah, was established by labor Zionists. Well, guess what? There were riots in Jerusalem, and the one and only Ze'ev Jabotinsky in 1920 decided that something had to be done. And he was then called the defender of Jerusalem, Magen Yerushalayim, because he was the person that came up and said, we have to establish a defense on Jerusalem. And he started this defense group in Jerusalem, which later on became the Haganah that we all know well. Now, Jabotinsky was obsessed. And I guess when you do these things, you absolutely have to be obsessed in order to succeed. More than anything else, he wanted Jews to be proud and to defend themselves. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm absolutely doing that on purpose. In 1917, when the war broke out, when World War I broke out, and anyone who was from a Russian country, from the Turks, the Ottoman Empire was still in the land of Israel. What they did was they forced Jews from Russian backgrounds to leave, to exile from the land of Israel. We do that a lot, apparently. We're exiled a lot. And they sent them to Egypt. Two very important men happened to meet in Egypt at the time. One of them was Zev Jabotinsky, and the other one was Joseph Trumpeldor. Joseph Trumpeldor was a war hero who lost his arm in the Russian-Japan War in 1905. He lost his left arm. And he was a Zionist, and he came to live in the land of Israel. And he was exiled. He was exiled to Alexandria together with Jabotinsky. They had a lot of time on their hands. And they spoke of their dreams. And they spoke of their dream of establishing a Jewish army. Now, just think, from exile, from Jews that knew absolutely nothing about self-defense. All they knew, we have these groups in Jerusalem, these groups here, these groups there, and they're sitting and they're talking to themselves and they're talking about their dreams and they want to. And Trumpeldor says, I can be all of that. He says, what do you mean you could be all of that? He says, I can be your first pioneer. I'm willing to go and establish this Jewish army. And Jabotinsky says to him, you're crazy. And he says to him, no, I'm not. And when the war is over and the British mandate starts in the land of Israel, and the Ottomans are driven out, the Ottoman Empire is driven out of the land of Israel, there is an attempt by Jabotinsky to go and to establish what he would call later a Jewish Legion. And the British were very skeptical about the ability of the Jews to fight in the British Army. Jabotinsky believed that the only way to secure the future of the Jews was to take part in fighting. So they went to the British and they said, we would like to establish a Jewish Legion. And the British came up and said, well, we'll let you lead the Zion Mule Corps. Zion Mule Corps, Jabotinsky said, but I want to be proud. I want to be a proud Jew. I want to fight. I want to go out there and I want to take part in the British Army. I want to help liberate the land of Israel. I want to help. A mule? That's demeaning. If I have to lead mules, and if I have to lead a logistic line, then I'm not really a fighter. That is an embarrassment. And I do not want to embarrass. It's bad enough what Jews endured, during the years of exile. It's horrible enough that we've had to endure this. And Trumpeldor sat down with him and he said, that is our foot in the door. Not in so many words, obviously, but that is our foot in the door. Let's take this Zion Mule Corps. Let's take this. And let's start with this. Jabotinsky will later on write a long, long article on, it's called He Was Right and I Was Wrong. And at the end of the day, Jabotinsky says Trumpeldor was right and I was wrong, because Jabotinsky was obsessed, and many would say rightfully so, with Jewish pride and with changing ourselves from the exiled Jew to a proud Jew, and us leading mules, okay, in battle, seemed very, very demeaning, very, very demeaning to him. But this, in fact, was the foot in the door. This was the foot in the door, and this enabled Jabotinsky later on to come to the British Mandate and say, I would like to now establish the Jewish Legion. I would like to take part in the fighting as a Jewish Legion. Now, some would say that's segregating and it's separating the Jews. This was at the time what they believed would be part of the healing process. A Jew who knows how to defend him or herself is a Jew who can live. And if a Jew cannot defend themselves, there is no future for the Jewish people. And they established the Zion Mule Corps. And they established the Jewish Legion. And the Jewish Legion fought until the establishment of the British Mandate in the land of Israel. And guess what? They weren't stupid. The British then understood that this was a military force within the Jewish settlement, and they forced it to be dismantled. But Jabotinsky did not give up. They did not give up. Everyone thought that the British would come, including Jabotinsky, by the way. They were Anglophiles at the time, and they believed that the British would come, and that would be a step towards the establishment of the State of Israel, where I think we all know what happened where the British Mandate began and how they started going further and further away from the promise of a homeland for the Jewish people, the white papers, the limitations on immigration to the land of Israel, the certificates that had to be obtained, the Holocaust that was around the corner, and many things were happening. And Jabotinsky, throughout his history, from one organization to another organization, went and established different groups that would then serve to be parts of the IDF. They would take a very important part in driving out the British Mandate. And this came from a Jew in Odessa who was wildly concerned for the future of the Jewish people, and started with an idea that we have to be proud and resilient. From there, Jabotinsky goes from the Haganah, because they believed in restraint, and the Arabs were uprising, and the British demanded that they would be restrained. Again, we're asked to be, to sit back, appeasement. Jabotinsky says no. He establishes not a particularly original name, Haganah B, from Haganah A to Haganah B. And at the end, that goes back into the Haganah, and he establishes the Irgun. The Irgun, which is the Etzel, which is the underground movement, which began the fight to drive the British Mandate out of the land of Israel. So the defender of Jerusalem, or the defender of the people of Israel, basically, it began with Zev Jabotinsky. From there, I'm very happy to send out, if anybody wants a chart of the breakdown of that, but that's basically to explain all these different things that you're hearing, where this has come from. It came from Jabotinsky. Even the Haganah, and from them the Palbach, that came from what is called the left, the settlement, the workers, the socialist movement, the Palmach, they formed the IDF. The Irgun became part of the IDF. The Haganah became part of the IDF. And today, as difficult as it is, we have a very strong army, and we're going through a very tough time. But as you can see, thank God, very, very hard to break the Jewish people. So that was just a little bit of a background. If anybody has any questions at this point about the establishment of, or the defense, how the rationale for we Jews, we need to defend ourselves, how that came to be, I'm happy to ask. And then we're going to give Aaron Hadida the stage to talk a little bit about what we can do now to make our lives more secure. Anybody have any questions?
No, but it was very well summarized. That was succinct, much more succinct than we've heard in the past from other groups. So that's great.
Thank you.
Sorry. I have a question, but it's sort of about what we were talking about. you mentioned that it was a very terrible weekend, and I have not looked at my phone because it was Shabbat. Could you please tell us what happened in Israel?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much, Martin. There were many casualties in Gaza. An armored vehicle exploded. They're still trying to figure out. There were 8 soldiers, 8 Jewish warriors, Israeli, excuse me, killed. And in addition to that, one of the 4 Givati soldiers also succumbed to his wounds and passed away, unfortunately, and 2 more reservists. So there were 11 casualties from the war in Gaza on the last weekend. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible Shabbat. We're paying a very, very heavy price for a very, very necessary war, unfortunately, which we have no choice but to fight. And there are really no politics in this. You know, we have to destroy the Hamas. We have no choice. Yes, so that was our weekend. We walk around with very, 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 very heavy hearts. There's no such thing as somebody who doesn't know someone who, lo alenu, has been hit, and it's very, very tragic. Yes, anyone have any more questions, any more comments before?
Hi. I think there's something that is missing here. I agree with everything you say, and I agree with strength in Jews and Judaism, and I think IDF is doing a great job. However, I think there's a problem with Judaism and the IDF in that they don't believe that killing somebody is a good thing in certain circumstances. They're the most moral army in the world, which means Israelis get killed as opposed to Palestinians get killed. And I don't think that's very wise. I think in terms of fighting someone who obviously hates us and wants to destroy us, destroying them first is not only biblically determined, but is an excellent thing. So I think our mental attitude towards killing, not killing good people, but killing an enemy that wants to kill us should be prominently displayed as a good thing, as a group of Jews who are willing to kill people who are ethically immoral people or bad people or whatever you want to describe them as. So I think that's a problem with Judaism, is that they're not willing to kill people. It's immoral to kill people, even if they want to kill you first. And I don't think that's Judaism, and I don't think it's helpful for Israel or the IDF. That's it.
I appreciate the comment, but the IDF has been doing exactly that. If it's an enemy, they kill them. Nobody's been. I don't think there's a problem. I have 100% faith in the IDF, and I served for 3 years, many years ago. My son is a soldier, came to Haram. He lived till 120. My daughter was in reserves for 60 days up north, Kana Haram. She lived till 120, and all our soldiers, they are ruthless and they are not afraid of anyone. So I agree with you, and I don't think that's a problem, thank God.
Okay, I don't think that. I would have preferred that another 1,000 Palestinians were killed rather than the 380 Israelis who were killed protecting us. If they were bombed right away on October 8th, we would have saved whatever it is, 350 Israeli lives. I would have gone that way.
You're talking about the method. Well, I'm not enough of an expert on you know, the called Torat Lechima, the theories of warfare. but how exactly and what, but I do have great faith in the Army and in the Minister of Defense and in the Chief of Staff, even though there was a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake. And you can quote me on what I'm about to say. I do not believe in any conspiracy theories. I don't believe there was any conspiracy. I think there was a lot of overly confident Israelis, which I am a proud, member of this country, a citizen of this country. It's a matter of I could talk about that for a very long time. I think we were overly confident and we made a lot of mistakes. Small, smart army doesn't work in the Middle East. But I don't believe in conspiracies from either side, to be quite honest.
I also want to say,
yeah. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
Sorry,
go ahead, Martin.
Briefly, that there was the hostage. Just briefly, on the methods from a military point of view, with the hostage involved, obliterating it by bombs would have immediately sentenced everyone to death, including the hostages. But that was a factor. The hostages were at least a factor in the methodology. So that's just my quick point on that.
Thank you, Martin. Absolutely.
I think we're also concerned. I think part of the problem is that many Jewish people are highly influenced by the mainstream media, and the mainstream media is, it talks a lot about that Israel overreacts and Israel is killing innocent people, and it's not what the Israeli army is doing, but the mainstream media has its own agenda, and many Jewish people are influenced by the mainstream media.
It's interesting that you're saying that. I'll end with that and give Aaron the microphone, or virtual microphone. That I was shocked. My brother is working in the Jewish community of Akron, Ohio, and he told me that he was arguing with people about disproportionality, and I was shocked because in Israel, what's referred to the Israeli so-called left, this discourse doesn't exist. You're not hearing any of this. Israel has shifted. There is across the board. What you see, what the media is showing about politics, I can tell you that the people on the street, the fighters, the soldiers, the men, the women, everyone who is fighting predominantly agrees and understands that there's no such thing as proportionality. We're not even on that page. It's not there. It's not an issue of, if this is typically and specifically, right now we're talking about American Jewry. So a problem with American Jewry, I'm sure, Aaron, you experience it in Canada as well. I'm absolutely sure. As one of our dear leaders likes to say, unfortunately, I wish he didn't have to, that there are a lot of Jew-hating Jews out there. And to sit and talk about disproportionality when they're doing the most horrific things, it's that simple. And these are actually posts on social media that I love. You want a ceasefire? Release the hostages. Yes, Gail, please.
Yes, I'm very concerned about the double standard the world has regarding Jews. I live in New York City, which has, next to Israel, the largest amount of Jews. And it's horrific, the amount of anti-Semitism without consequences. There are no consequences. We're living in a lawless society. And even our mayor has stated, Nazi Germany, it was in Germany, but with social media, it's throughout the world. We're seeing anti-Semitism and the amount of ignorance that's going with it throughout the world. I've lived with anti-Semitism my whole life. Both my parents were Holocaust survivors. I fought for victims my whole life. And people, Jews make up 0.2% of the world population. Muslims make up 25% of the world population. 20% of them are jihadists, which is equivalent to 4 million people that want to see us dead. It's in their Quran, kill the Jews, subjugate Christians, but yet everybody is, and I don't want to say everybody, but what you're seeing in the media throughout the world are people siding with people who want to kill the Jews. And it's shocking to me.
I agree. So
And it's
first,
shocking to me to see that Jews themselves are defending a lot of this. Jews themselves are enabling a lot of this. Anybody who's enabling this are co-conspirators. They're just as guilty. Why can't Jews defend themselves? We're the only group that's subject to this. If everything that's on the college campuses, if you were to place another word but Jews, whether it's blacks, Chinese, Italians, you'd have riots. People
for
are not
sure.
standing up for themselves in this country and throughout the world. But we only make up 0.2% of the world population. Why are people siding with the predators and not the victims?
Gail, thank you. Lee.
Yeah, one thing that we have made some talking points to go against some of these things that are going to be talked about at the National Education Association Representative Assembly over the July 3rd through 7th, is that in World War II, civilian casualties for British civilians numbered 66,375 to 70,000, mostly due to the German bombing raids during the Blitz, and for Germany, 350,000 to 500,000. So, does that make it a war crime that Britain against Germany because more German civilians were killed than British civilians? No, these are unfortunate circumstances of war. So therefore, Israel is not committing war crimes because, comparing these figures to the Israel-Hamas war, it's just unfortunate. I personally don't want anyone killed, but we have to get rid of Hamas. And we know that civilians are hiding Hamas, are hiding the hostages. So what are we to do? We have to not let them compare saying, oh, so many Palestinian, have been killed compared to how many, Israelis. We can't compare that. This is a war.
Well, I think we feel guilty about killing Hamas people or civilians if they are innocent. And I don't think we should feel guilty about it. I think the Jewish community in general feels guilty about killing anybody.
Yeah.
But people want to go with winners. And if you say, I'm sorry I killed that person, you don't become a winner. If you say, I'm glad I killed that person, you're a winner and people agree with you. So I think it's in our favor to say, oh, he hated Jews, I killed him. Good, I did the right thing. And I think it's an attitude we don't have. I don't think it's a particularly moral suggestion that I'm suggesting is not particularly moral, but I think it's effective in the world we live in, and we do live in that world. So we have to sometimes not be as morally good as perhaps we should be, but be effective. And if that means killing people that hate us, so be it. It's what we need to do to survive.
Thank you. Gail, afterwards, I'll connect you to our leader, our community leader in New York. But Aaron, please, so you can hear more about our activity if you're in New York City. But Aaron, please give us a little bit of a taste of what we can do now as the director, worldwide director security of Herut.
So it's always a pleasure to speak with the Jewish community. My job, and of course, always a great honor to work with Karma and Miriam and everybody. My job is basically all over the place, but it all leads to one road. So, I mean, one could call it, a person wearing many hats. But it all leads to the Jewish community security, the Jewish community safety. Jabotinsky understood it. He was only one person, planted the seeds, and it grew huge. You know, some would argue that it always takes one person to spark the fire. And I'm not arrogant enough to say that I'm that one person by any means. I'm just a person. You know, yesterday I was in a forum to support the Iranian community who supports the Jewish community in Israel. And one of the key politician speakers stood up and he said, you know, out of the clear blue sky, I want to acknowledge a person that's here, that keeps the community safe, that's always this and always that. And he, you know, pointed me out and he started talking about me. And truthfully, you know, I just stood up and I looked at everybody and I said, you know, I said, you guys to me are heroes. The fact that you come out, the fact that you're willing to learn, the fact that you're willing to understand the issues and not just go on a soapbox and complain about them, the fact that you want to actually do something about it makes people who they are to me. That's what makes a hero to me. Someone that's willing to do the work, not somebody that's going to sit in their house and complain, you know, that they're saying that we're winning too much, you know, which I've never heard in my life. When they went into Fallujah and they killed hundreds of thousands of insurgents, nobody said anything. So at the end of the day, it's going to happen. This is just who we are. This is what our community is. And it's always going to be that way. This is not going to magically change in the next few years because, you know, we desperately want it to. They're always going to come after us. They're always going to say, you know, they love when we're victims, but even when we're victims, we're doing something wrong. So at the end of the day, my theory is very simple. Don't be a victim. You know, if you're going to hate me if I'm a victim and you're going to hate me if I'm a hero, then I prefer you hate me if I'm a hero. I prefer you hate me because I just broke somebody's jaw that was trying to attack an old Jewish woman. So, and there's hundreds of videos of me doing stuff like that, but I don't want to do it. I've never wanted to do it. The police understand, the police that I work with understand that I don't want to do it. And I teach people not to want to do it. You don't, if you want to do it, if you want to go out and gleefully start hurting people, then you're not my kind of person, because that's somebody who's just arrogant and doesn't understand that these tools are to save your life. But the beauty of these tools, the beauty of learning self-defense, and the beauty of understanding the need for self-defense is it comes with pride. It automatically instills pride in you. Why doesn't anybody F with certain people? Because they can look you in the eyes and understand it's not going to be an easy road. So let me just keep walking. And defusing a situation and stopping a potential attack. I do a lot of high profile security for dignitaries, politicians, etc., religious figures. And I'm not looking to attack anybody. In my platform, I'm looking to defuse a situation. When I see it escalating and I see somebody getting super hot, I defuse it, as opposed to confronting it head on. Anger with anger, you better be prepared for it. If you're prepared for it, no issue. If you're not prepared for it, it's going to be a problem. So you have to have a mentality first and foremost. And it starts by believing that you're not going to be a victim. It's really that simple. Because of the Magen David that I wear, because of the Star of David tattoos I have all over my body, I can't hide who I am. I just can't hide it. And whether I'm with any community out there who I'm friends with or work with or whatever, they all know this is who I am, and I don't even begin to try to hide it. I'm very proud of it. And in Canada, there's areas where it's 99.9% Muslim, and out of that almost 100% population, 85% of them are radicals. And I gladly go into those areas when I have to, and I gladly walk into their coffee shops to order coffee when I have to, because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm in the same country you're in. I came here the same way you came here in most cases. I'm entitled to be there. I'm entitled to order a coffee. But I'll tell you what we've established over years of, call it battles. They won't cross a certain line into a Jewish community because they understand that it won't go unanswered. Now, last week, there was a infiltration, I call it, into our community. A bunch of kids, like, high schoolers, possibly college students, came into a Jewish area. It was the day after the Walk for Israel. They were so upset that they could do nothing at the Walk for Israel because we had locked it down so hard that the next day they wanted to go make a statement by walking down a Jewish street and screaming at elderly Jewish people that were just walking. Had we known about it, we would have put a stop to it. 10 or 15 or 25 of my friends would have been there, and we would have put an immediate stop to it because somebody had already called the police. The police would have seen that it was us, would have understood that they were in grave danger, these young people, and they would have gotten rid of them immediately. Now, I'm not there to allow them a platform to sit and scream at us and call us names or say, go back to the ovens or whatever else they've said. I'm there to ensure that if they have no business being somewhere, they're not there. And you do that with, training, with self-defense, with a mindset. A lot of people talk a lot of BS in this world, a lot. And everybody's a tough guy till a tough guy walks in the room. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a proponent for everybody having a tough mindset. Everybody, you have to have a tough mindset. All of us, every single one of us come from communities that have issues and that have had, racism and that have been the brunt of attacks. So collectively, there's nothing wrong with understanding that and coming together and saying, we're not going to take it anymore. We're just not going to allow this anymore. And that's my mindset. And why do I have a don't F with me attitude? Because it's not going to happen. I refuse to allow it to happen. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword because sometimes you want it to happen. Sometimes it's like, yeah, you know what? I see all these videos of Jews in New York being attacked. I see 20 people standing around and allowing one attacker to beat up a Jew. And I can't process that. It just doesn't, I can't compute that in my brain. Because if those 20 people don't know a single thing about defense, self-defense, nothing, they've never even wrote the term down on a piece of paper, it's okay. Because that's 40 hands the attacker has to deal with. So all they have to do is start shoving the guy. All they have to do is put a circle around him. He sees 20 or 10 people or 8 people around him. I guarantee you he's running away like the coward that he is. Because they're all cowards. Anybody that's going to attack somebody, they automatically assess the situation. That's the first thing in self-defense I teach people, is that an attacker is almost an expert profiler in that respect, because they immediately assess, okay, there's only two of them, they're all weak, I can handle this, I can take care of it, no problem. How come there's videos of me by myself doing security at an Al-Quds Day rally or whatever that they're doing, and I'm with a reporter, and they say something to me from across the way? Usually they can't rile me up. They can't rattle me. Doesn't upset me. But sometimes, they'll say certain key phrases that I just won't allow. And there's videos of me walking right up to them. There's 12, 14,000 of them. And I walk right into their crowd, into the person that said what he said, and I say, now repeat it. I don't get attacked. I haven't been, mauled. I haven't been put in the hospital. And that, I'm not saying I'm a hero. What I'm saying is, understand your enemy. Understand that anger doesn't equate to knowledge. Just because somebody's screaming, intifada, intifada, that doesn't mean they can do anything else. It just means they have a loud mouth. Like we saw at your University of Toronto, when I did security with one other person for a crowd of 100 against all of them a couple weeks ago. And they were, as soon as they saw us, they came running up, created a line in front of us, and they were screaming like it was nobody's business. I mean, just screaming. And I was standing, pretty much, face to face. I allow a 3-foot separation. If they come closer than 3 feet, I'm defending myself. And I'm defending everybody there. You want to come nose to nose with me? Your jaw's getting broken. You'll never see a video of me nose to nose with anybody unless the ambulance is there picking them up. And I don't say that arrogantly. I'm not trying to sound like I'm just factually telling you that's my mark. 36 inches, and come closer than that, it's going to happen. That's it. And it's happened many, 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 many times. And that's not because of me, it's because I'm defending the community. If you get that close to my community to me, white, black, brown, purple, yellow, straight, gay, trans, whatever you are, I'm defending you. It comes first, self-defense comes from a deep love for your community. That's number one to me. That deep love gives you the pride. That pride gives you the desire to want to help. And by helping, you train, you learn, you become. If you can't do it physically, and not everybody can, and of course, I respect that, do it on social media. Join us in the war on social media that we're waging every single day. We're waging a war every day. And those of us that are doing it literally 8 hours a day, it's a war. Don't get it twisted. And you have to dispel all of the lies. You have to debunk all of the BS that they're spewing. And when they come at me, I just laugh, because I say, hold on a second, guys, hang on. So what you're telling me now, when I hear that stupid word proportion, is that we're winning too much. Hold on, guys, you're winning way too much. You got to slow your winning down. Well, I have an idea for you. Hostages back, Hamas weapons down. It's over today. 5 minutes. But nobody calls for that. They want to demonize, dehumanize. They want to vilify us. They don't want to call for the reality that will stop everything. And when they call them freedom fighters, okay. So if they're such freedom fighters, again, release our people, protect your people by releasing our people, not by hiding behind them, and not by putting them in front of you like a coward that you are. Now, listen, I'm not trying to preach to anybody because, someone said something in a meeting the other day that I was in, and they said, my biggest fear is that we're all just talking to each other. That really all we're doing is just talking amongst ourselves. And I said, that's not accurate. That's very, very not true. What we're doing is what Karma said in the very beginning, which is the most important aspect of self-defense, the most important aspect of any war, education. You have to educate everybody you can. It's your job. We are all warriors in our own right, whether it's with a sword, whether it's with a pen. We're warriors, or a keyboard for that matter. So utilize that. Use it. If you can't go and train, if you can't become that person that says, I'm going to keep an eye on the Jewish community, and I'll elaborate quickly on what we've done to do that and not bore you to death all day. So basically, there's other ways you can do it. Like I said, the social media battle, just educating one person. And I can show you screenshots of debates I've had with people on Instagram. And, I speak to a lot of pretty prominent figures in our community that are activists along with us. And they always say to me, why do you go so hard at them? Like, I type until Instagram won't allow any more words to get into there, and then I send it. Or sometimes I have to cut it up and send it. And I'll say, because I felt by the person's comment, I could show them the truth. And then that person DMs me by the time we're done and says, thank you so much for taking the half an hour and educating me. My whole views have been changed. I now understand how ignorant I've been. Those are the things you want to see and hear, right? And people don't understand that there are people being persecuted all over the world at this very second. They only want to hyper focus on the Jewish community defending ourselves from a monster who attacked us October 7th. So they're trying to say ridiculously, well, okay, now you've attacked them too much. Like, come on, think about that, bro. Are you joking? Like, what is wrong with you? If you didn't attack us, we wouldn't have to answer it. Now, that being said, I'm with the part of the Jewish community that says, if you attack us, you're going to regret it. Now, we've never started a war. I've said it since the day I became an activist 30 years ago. We've never started a conflict. But one thing we will always do is end them. We will finish them. And God willing, we'll finish them as quickly as humanly possible with all of our people back. So, self-defense, what can you do? What can you really do? What I did October 8th is I created WhatsApp groups. The following day, We didn't even know where, how many bodies, where they were, who was surviving, who was hiding in bushes. I had friends who were taken as hostage. I have friends who arrived at the festival late, ended up seeing them coming literally down, grabbed weapons because they're IDF soldiers. They grabbed weapons from security who had 2 guns on them. They took one and they started killing a dozen terrorists and rescuing as many people as they could. So if you're one person, that's fine. But understand the power of one. It always starts with one. If you're walking by a cafe and somebody's screaming at members of the Jewish community and you keep walking, that's your choice to do that. But like a magnet, it pulls me in hard. I can never do that. I just can't do it. And I'm a guy that's riding a Harley Davidson yesterday, and I'm blasting Yisrael Chai in probably an area you don't want to blast it. And I'm at a red light and people are looking at me, and I could tell one person was Jewish because they were videotaping me. But the rest of them just had like, what is this guy? Is he nuts? Like, should we even approach him? Come. If you want to approach me, you want to dance, you want me to put my kickstand down, we can have a little hora going on the street, I'm down. Let's go, bro. Or do you want to swear at me? And that's fine, you can, that's your right. But 36 inches, that's our mark. Do whatever you want until you hit 36 inches. I have a very dear brother of mine, Steve, and we grew up together. I grew up in a very eclectic neighborhood. We had everybody, and my best friend from the time I was 5 years old until the time where he passed away was from the Black community. And me and Paul trained together because we had to, because people were trying to steal our milk money when we were kids. Paul's mother used to come and say, here's $2. Can you go get milk for me? Because Paul's at school. I'd say, yeah, I'm going. And I'd have to take a friend with me to make sure nobody jumped us. That's the type of area we grew up in. So you learn, just like today, we need to learn that self-defense. And if we can't do it ourselves, it's okay. But encourage others who can. Let's get to the young people. Let's get to the yeshivas, the most visibly trained, the most visible Jews in the world. Let's get to them first, second, third, I don't care. We've created programs around the world with Karma where we set up training Krav Maga classes for kids at university. And we'll start the training and we'll carry that forward, hoping that we give them enough basic tools. I don't want to make anyone a UFC fighter unless that's what they want. We just want to give them enough tools that they can stop an attack. And I can do that between us here in one class. It's just, you have to go home and practice it. I can give you 4 or 5 different techniques in one class, in a 2-hour class, then just go practice them. And I promise you, if somebody attacks you, you can stop it. You're not going to win a champion belt, in any fight forum, but you can stop an attacker. And, we teach how to disarm from all different types of weapons, knives, guns, sticks, swords, whatever. And the thing I always tell people is, put it in your mind immediately that you could get hurt, but it's going to heal. Those cuts are going to heal. You took his knife away, you got cut once or twice on your arm. It's going to heal. You know what doesn't heal? Death. Once you're gone, you're gone. So understand that. And every single fight, you're fighting for your life, because you don't know how this can accelerate. You don't know what his thoughts are or her thoughts. You don't understand what they're thinking. And we see it in the news every day. Things go from 0 to 1,000 in the blink of an eye. So go into it with the mindset that this could very well get ugly. But I'm not going to just turn a blind eye and pretend it's not happening or cower, because that's going to make it worse. The bully's going to become more of a bully. And sorry, back to the WhatsApp groups. October 8th, we got, I think it was about by the 9th or 10th, we had about 2,300 people on WhatsApp groups. And what we did was we split them up into zones. So if you lived in zone A, you were in that group, zone B, etc. Then what we said was we were encouraging everybody to just keep an eye on your neighborhoods. Just watch your areas. And if you're going to work, going to school, you're going to the grocery store, you're doing whatever, you're outside cutting your grass, shoveling your snow in this case, just keep an eye out. And you've got 2,300 people now that are still doing it. I don't know how many thousands are doing it now, because they've all spawned off into their own groups. But it can be done in every city of the world. Become a community watch. Become that person that leads, that heads up the community watch, not in an arrogant way. There's a very, very fine line between being a leader and being arrogant. The first thing I tell people is do it for the right reasons. Don't do it for the glory, for the accolades, for the money, for the whatever. Do it for the right cause, the right reasons. And if you do that, it will be successful. People will follow it. So be that spark. Ignite that spark. Ignite the fire in people. And New York City specifically, New York needs it so desperately. And we all need it everywhere. But New York seems to be taking such a pounding, and I don't see a lot being done about it. There are a lot of good people in New York City that are, fed up, and they've had enough, and they want to get stuff going. So, I'm happy to come and help and help organize and get classes organized, and we're not talking about long-winded stuff anymore. We're not saying let's train you for the rest of your life. If that's what you want, we'll do it. But if you just want to learn some basic tools and get going on it, let's get that happening too. So anybody can do this, anybody. And like I said, if it's not a physical, in a physical sense, then be a warrior somewhere else. Share a post, comment, post something, educate somebody. It's so important. We need this every day of the week. It never ends. And it's not going to end. I didn't start doing this October 7th. I started doing this 30 years ago. And I do it every day of the week. And we need to be, first and foremost, united. We have to come together. So listen, if anyone has any questions for me, You can email me or get a hold of me through Karma. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to help organize. I'm sorry if I was long-winded. And if there's anything I can do to help you and your communities, I'm here 24/7. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you.
Aaron, you're a star. Thank you so much. Bless you for what you do, and may Hashem protect you.
Amen.
Miriam?
I read Aaron's book about 2 or 3 years ago. It's a great book, and I recommend it to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. It is a great book. It's a fabulous book, and it's down to earth, so people who have no understanding of it can wrap their head around it. And that's very important for people to be able to understand, what being a tough Jew really is. And thank you so much, Miriam. Is there anything you want to add?
No, I don't have anything extra.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Aaron, thank you so much for speaking. Thank you for allowing me to give you a little bit of history. People often think that Kahana started it all. Well, he didn't. And they were people who were far better thought through than he. Forgive me for saying that. And I want to wish you all to please be safe, and look forward to our next meeting and next webinar. Thank you so much for joining, and happy Father's Day.
All the best, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks.